A shocking arrest of this outspoken man of the cloth. Pastor Ken Atkins in a mugshot, charged with molesting a child. His wife standing by him and defending him.
We expect the district attorney and Georgia Bureau of Investigation will be as vocal in publicly clearing his good name at the time as they have been besmirching his name around town and in the media over the past 24 hours.
Charlotte Atkins speaking out just hours after her husband turned himself in at the Glynn County Jail.
The 56-year-old clergyman has become well known with his controversial, even outrageous comments on homosexuality. He's facing 1 count of child molestation and 1 count of aggravated child molestation and a possible life sentence. Investigators say the young man, who used to be a member of Atkins' church, told them he was molested in 2010. We're told the victim was under the age of 16. Atkins will make his first court appearance Monday.
He's known for his controversy, and now Ken Atkins is back in the spotlight for something different. He's facing 2 counts of child molestation on a young man who attended his church in Brunswick, Georgia.
Warrants say that these events took place in 2010, and it's a long time. We don't know why they're coming up now. We'd like to think that these charges or their timing isn't politically motivated. We certainly hope not, and we're not saying that they are, but given his past and his very vocal public positions on various issues, it's obviously a concern.
His attorney, Kevin Goff, as well as Atkins' wife, Charlotte Atkins, held a press conference today. The media was not allowed to ask Ms. Atkins questions after, but she prepared a statement.
I am here today on behalf of my husband and our church to express my support for my husband, Kenneth Atkins. We are disappointed with what appears to be a rush to judgment by law enforcement authorities in this case. We are confident that my husband, Kenneth Atkins, will be found innocent of all charges.
Investigators say the molestation happened in 2010 on several occasions at the victim's residence, as well as in a vehicle and at Atkins' church.
Former Georgia pastor convicted of child molestation will likely spend the rest of his life in jail. A judge today sentenced Kenneth Atkins to 35 years, plus the rest of his life, however, I should say, will be on probation.
And so that means Atkins likely won't be released until he's in his 90s.
2 Texas newspapers came up with a list of hundreds of church leaders who have either been convicted of a sex crime or credibly accused. And on that list are 2 men who used to work here at Arapahoe Road Baptist Church. One of them a youth minister, and one of them his younger brother, a volunteer who was here back in 2013. Joshua Earls worked for the church 4 years from 2009 to 2013. He was sentenced to 12 years for receipt of explicit child pornography after police here in Garland say he urged a 14-year-old girl in the church to send him inappropriate pictures and videos. His younger brother, Jordan Earls, did not work at the church but volunteered with the youth ministry. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Police say he groomed teenagers at the church and convinced them to send him explicit pictures and to video chat with him. The men are listed among nearly 400 others in a joint investigation by the San Antonio Express-News and the Houston Chronicle. The papers spent 6 months investigating and found 380 Southern Baptist church workers and volunteers have been accused of sexual misconduct since 1998. At least 8 of them have ties to North Texas, and according to the report, dozens of the church pastors, employees, and volunteers who exhibited the predatory behavior were still able to find jobs at churches, and some of those registered sex offenders even returned to the pulpit. This whole thing came about after 10 years ago. The newspapers reported that several of the victims of sex abuse came forward asking the church to create this database of the child predators in the church. And when the church decided not to create that database, now 10 years later, these newspapers decided they would do it. So you can find a link to that database and the article on our website, fox4news.com. Reporting live in Garland, Shannon Murray for Good Day.
A man who made a date online for sex with a young girl has shown up earlier than expected. Our decoy, playing the part of a young girl, heads to the front door to wave the man in.
Hey, come on in.
He's 32-year-old Christopher Xavier Cannon, here to meet a 15-year-old virgin. At least that's what he was told. Turns out he's a media director at his church, a volunteer position working with young teens, which makes his sexually explicit online chat all the more disturbing. Using the screen name Xavier01, he asks the girl if she's ever had an orgasm. The decoy says, "I don't think so," and Xavier01 says, "Good." Then he asks her,
"Do you want to be on top or bottom?"
I'm not sure. Which is better?
We'll have to see where you fit best, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I see. I think I know.
Or we can do doggy style.
Sorry, if I don't put this stuff in the washer right away, it just wrinkles. But I made some sweet tea, so just make yourself a glass.
Can I use your restroom?
Oh, why don't you have a seat real quick?
Oh, okay, I know what this is. I know what this was. I just went to test it, that's all.
Okay, noted, sir.
Thanks. I knew what it was.
What do you think it was?
Nothing.
He heads out the door, right into the arms of the Harris County Sheriff's Department.
Hey! Stop! Stop! Get down on the ground! Get down on the ground! Get down!
Christopher Cannon is the 32-year-old volunteer church director who mentioned several sexual positions he'd like to try with a girl posing as a 15-year-old. He's the one who ran as soon as he saw me.
Oh, why don't you have a seat real quick?
Oh, yeah, I know what this is.
No, please, I need you.
Yeah, I know what this was. I just went to test it, that's all.
Okay.
But that's not what he tells investigators.
It's funny. When I saw this on Dateline a few months ago, or whatever.
You show up in the middle of it.
Yes, I'm like, that is so sick. Why did I do this?
The investigator reminds him he'd been chatting online with the decoy for more than a week, and many times the chat turned sexual.
I mean, just playing around with her, but my intention wasn't to do it. I even wanted to reject it.
But you drove 115 miles.
I know it. I kept saying to myself, why am I coming out here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Turn around, turn around. Trust me, I wanted to turn around.
Help me understand, because I'm kind of lost when you say that you didn't want to come, but you're here.
Part of me was like, they would just turn around. And part of me was like, it's the first weekend you had to yourself. Just go out there, hang out a little bit. Don't do anything silly.
Well, why would you even have a sexual conversation with a 15-year-old?
I really tried to avoid her when I first met her. Every time I get online, she initiate the conversation. And
you said you didn't initiate the conversation, but actually you did. She never talked to you. You said, "Hello, Natalie," because you saw her in a chat room.
Yeah.
And how are you doing today? That was the first initiation on your part.
Yeah, I did initiate. Yeah, just chatting.
You asked her if she's horny now, and then you asked her if she's wet now. Why would you care if a 15-year-old is wet?
Stupidity, man. I mean, I don't know why.
When you tell her you'll be gentle, what are you referring to when you're talking about being gentle?
Just being with her, nothing sexually touching her, no.
Chris, we've been doing this too long.
Yeah, just.
I understand. Y'all go through.
I just saw you do the sign of the cross, so I know you're probably a religious man.
I'm about to.
And you would probably feel better if you came.
Breaking news, a pastor from Monroeville was arrested today and charged with sodomy. The Monroe County Sheriff's Office says Gerald Gibbs was indicted by a grand jury last week. He was arrested by Monroeville police. The 47-year-old faces 2 counts of second-degree sodomy. He's pastor at Call to Life Apostolic Church.
Walking up the walk towards the door.
Hi, come on.
Now back up. He's right there. Keep going.
Here comes another man who, despite seeing our previous broadcasts, is willing to take the risk of showing up at a stranger's house to possibly have sex with a minor. He's 22-year-old Matthew Cogburn. Yesterday was his birthday. He's here to meet a decoy pretending to be a 14-year-old. This clean-cut, all-American-looking man has a MySpace page where he says Jesus rocks and lists God as his #1 hero. But when he goes into a Yahoo chat room, he seems like another person. His chat with a girl he thinks is 14 is so graphic, much of it can't be shown. He does ask the decoy if her house is secluded, so if they use the jacuzzi, you can moan and squeal all you want.
Nice house.
Thank you. Did you have a hard time getting here?
Well, the road that I was looking for didn't show up.
don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for that?
I had a feeling this was going to happen.
You had a feeling what was going to happen. Go ahead, sit down, please.
No,
Well, no, I need to talk to you about a couple of things, and I think you're going to want to talk about it. It's going to take a few minutes, so why don't you have a seat?
Is this going to be on national news?
I'm sorry, be on what?
Is this the national news thing?
NBC?
Yeah.
You mean like Dateline NBC?
Yeah.
What was your plan here today?
I can't answer that as I want to because I've been in a struggle myself with what I want to do because I'm still a virgin and I think it's stupid that I did this.
How old are you?
I'm 22.
22. And how old was the girl you were chatting with online?
The girl said she was 13 or 14.
13 or 14. And you thought that would be okay to come over here and visit a young girl home alone?
I wanted to think it was okay, but I just...
Now, I'm looking at this chat log here. 16 minutes into this discussion, you ask if she can do deep throat. Explain that to me.
No reason to explain.
No reason to explain. How do you feel about sex? You on birth control, or are you sticking with condoms? You got toys?
Is there a need?
Well, I want you to square that with what's on your MySpace website, where you talk about Jesus rocks.
We're going to do this too.
You'll hear more about this man's inner struggle after he's in police custody.
Get on the ground! Get down on the ground! All the way down! Down! Ground! Get on the ground!
This man also realizes it wasn't a good idea. He's the religious 22-year-old who said he was conflicted about meeting a 14-year-old after a sexually graphic online chat.
I've been in a, I'm not gonna say a mental struggle, but I'm still a virgin and I've been having trouble.
He tells investigators that this isn't the first time he's gone to visit someone he met online. In fact, he says he met his last girlfriend on MySpace.
We dated for 5.5 months, but there was nothing sexual, nothing, just good, clean relationship.
And she wasn't the only one.
I have met girls before, but I haven't done anything. I couldn't because of my spirituality, and I didn't. Solely deep down, I didn't have any intentions to do anything. I've been able to talk the way I've talked, and this is my punishment.
New at 5, a San Antonio youth pastor has been arrested for child sex crimes. 40-year-old Clayton Turner accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl and sexually assaulting her. Turner was taken into custody today after the victim came forward at school. Their sheriff's office says that he is a local youth pastor at several places, and they believe that there actually could be more victims. BCSO did not disclose which schools Turner is employed at. He now faces a charge of aggravated sexual assault of a child.
This man made plans online for a threesome with an underage teen and his adult girlfriend.
You ready? You can hear me? Okay, great.
35-year-old Marvin Smith, being waved into our house by a decoy, said he and his girlfriend wanted to have sex with a girl who told them she was a 15-year-old virgin.
Come on in. I'm just gonna finish getting ready. Maybe just like a couple minutes.
Online, he calls himself Southwest Georgia Male Yes. His chat is one of the most graphic and disturbing we've come across. At first, he offers the decoy, Erin Lynn B., $250. When she asks, "Why do you want to give me money?" he says, "'Cause I want you." Then he tells her about another girl he met online.
She was 15 like you. Her mom was at work.
Okay.
She invited me over. Had never had sex.
Oh.
Her and her friend.
He goes on to say that the two girls performed oral sex on him, and then he describes in detail how he claims to have taken one of the girls' virginity. And he doesn't stop there. After he sends pornography, he then introduces the decoy to a woman who calls herself Phyllis, his girlfriend, and says she wants to be there with us. Phyllis then apparently gets on the computer herself and starts chatting with Erin Lynn B. and explains how it would work. She says her boyfriend would have sex with both of us. As he's doing one of us, he would want us to play with each other. To verify Phyllis was real, a decoy from Perverted Justice spoke to her on the phone.
Phil, how are you? This is Erin.
Phyllis, the girlfriend, doesn't show up. She apparently had to work. But Southwest Georgia Mail Yes does, and is now in our house and in hot pursuit of our decoy.
I didn't get a chance to get a hug.
Have a seat.
But as the decoy walks behind the curtain, the man sees our camera crew and runs.
He saw Ron. He's coming out. He's coming out.
And he keeps on running, even after sheriff's deputies order him to stop. Finally, an officer's taser knocks him to the ground. After he's arrested, he's taken in for questioning. This man with the incredibly vulgar chat reveals something that, ironically, no longer surprises us.
I was a minister in the church.
What church you go to?
My dad was a preacher in the Baptist church. I don't want to go to prison.
It also turns out he's married and worried about his wife finding out.
Mr. Gary.
Yes. What is that?
My lose everything I got.
Do what?
I lose everything I have, Mr. Gary.
The 35-year-old asks to speak to a lawyer. The interview is over. He's then taken to the county jail, fingerprinted, photographed, and put behind bars.
Is Marvin Harrison Smith your true name?
Yes, ma'am.
The next day, he goes before a judge and bail is set.
All right, that's a total of 35.
A Kentucky pastor is facing child rape charges in Tennessee as well as Kentucky tonight. Making this case even more shocking is that this pastor was hired despite being a registered sex offender. Tonight he's charged with raping a 14-year-old member of his own congregation. Fox 17's Erica Lathan live now from Gallatin with more on this for us. Erica?
Well, Stacey, we can tell you that tonight Pastor Roy Yoakum is locked up here in the Sumner County Jail, charged with statutory rape. Tonight, church members say they're shocked, but some are asking how he got hired in the first place, considering he already had a criminal record. The New Gospel Outreach Church is dealing with a nightmare. Their pastor, Roy Yoakum, is charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old boy inside the church office and at the pastor's home in Gallatin. Police say Yoakum, a registered sex offender, should never have been placed in a position of trust or given access to children.
Regardless of whether or not the church trusted him or believed him, his status as a sex offender restricted him from having access to children. So he was in violation of the sex offender registry anyway.
Church members say Yoakum told them he pled guilty to second-degree sexual abuse of an 8-year-old boy in 2003, but claimed the allegations were false. They checked with authorities before appointing him pastor 3 years ago.
The Kentucky State Police was contacted. The Kentucky Attorney General's office was contacted, about the legality. And the troopers over at the Bowling Green Post said that they contacted the sex offenders branch, and they said there's nothing illegal about it.
Yoakum is facing statutory rape charges in Kentucky and Tennessee, but the interim pastor says he's still not ready to pass judgment.
I'm going to let the law enforcement and the court system decide that. Personally or officially, I'm not in a position to judge anyone.
So far, police in both states say no other alleged victims have come forward, but tonight we're learning that Yoakum could possibly face federal charges if the alleged victim in this case was transported across state lines. We're live in Sumner County. Erica Lathan, Fox 17 News.
So how can I help you?
In August 2005, 54-year-old David Kay was caught in one of our To Catch a Predator investigations trying to meet a 13-year-old boy for sex. Turns out Kay was a rabbi.
You know I'm in trouble, and I know I'm in trouble.
Kay was convicted and recently sentenced to 6.5 years in prison and 10 years of supervised release. The judge gave him a harsh sentence in part because he thought Kay lied at his trial.
What are you doing as a a man of God, as a rabbi, in this house, trying to meet a 13-year-old boy.
I don't want to do anything that's going to further make you angry.
I'm not angry.
But you're coming across in a very angry and authoritative sense. I've asked you for identification as to who you are, and you've yet to show it to me. Right now, all that's happened is that I'm sitting in a house.
And you sent pornographic pictures through the mail. Okay, that's a federal offense right there.
You know I'm in trouble, and I know I'm in trouble. I am not interested in getting any further. This is not something that I've done.
You've never done this before. You know, because I hear that a lot. You see a reaction on his face, and that pretty much seals the deal. He wants to know right then and there who I am. And so I tell him.
I don't understand why I can't pass some of them.
I'm more than happy to tell you who I am. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on computer predators.
Oh, no. Come on, guy.
You don't want to touch anybody. You don't want to. It was really one of the only time really, where somebody actually physically lunged at me. Now, looking back, I really don't think I was in much danger. But you can see how the security system works. Our guy stepped in, took care of it, and diffused the situation.
You've got to stop this.
Sit down. Sit down.
You don't have any
You're free to leave any time. We got phone calls from him for months, and he was downright mean. He blamed us for his situation, and we offered him the chance to do an interview. He initially said yes, but only if we didn't show the video from the house, didn't show his face, or identify what he did for a living. And obviously, those were conditions we could not meet. In this investigation, unlike the more recent ones, we did not have police doing a parallel investigation. These guys walked away. We did, however, interview the Fairfax County, Virginia police afterwards, and Perverted Justice supplied police with the chat logs. So ultimately, a lot of these guys were prosecuted.
Remember Rabbi David Kay?
We'll see.
Despite his actions caught on hidden camera and his graphic internet exchange, Rabbi Kay called us several times, claiming he did nothing wrong. However, earlier this week, he resigned his staff position, informing his employer he was going to be featured in this Dateline story. He also had no comment about this picture Dateline found while investigating the rabbi's background. It shows Kay in a group photo, including two other rabbis caught and convicted of soliciting a child for sex on the internet.
Claude Anthony Wallace pastors Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist in Gaffney, and tonight he told us his congregation is behind him.
I'm just regrettable that the incident occurred. I feel that it was blown out of proportion by the media.
That's what Claude Anthony Wallace told us about the sexually explicit text messages police say he admitted to sending a 17-year-old girl in Ware Shoals.
And certainly when you're in a high-profile position, you know, something like this is stretched to a different magnitude. But, you know, I feel that it could have been avoided. It's regrettable.
Yeah, she made it. There's a copy with that report in it.
Ware Shoals police say the girl's father called them after finding the messages on his daughter's phone. Police showed us some of the 20 messages they say Wallace sent the girl. Some are too explicit to put on television.
I know somebody's behind this, and but, you know, Jesus had haters. But, you know, with prayer, you know, we're going to get through this, and, you know, because good always overcomes evil.
Wallace wouldn't explain what he meant by that.
I don't feel that I need to elaborate on that right now, because it eventually will surface, because this is something that should not even have reached this status.
Investigators feel differently. Wallace pastors this church in Gaffney. The girl was not a member here, but police say she did meet Wallace at church.
She was in a youth program, and he was a youth minister doing a youth revival some years back when he first met her.
Investigators say the girl also sent text messages to Wallace and said she had strong feelings for him. Police say both Wallace and the girl say they didn't have a sexual relationship.
She stated that they had been talking back and forth for approximately a year.
As for Wallace, he says his congregation is behind him.
I've received nothing but hugs, love, and support, from the church family, and because they know my character, and they know what I stand for. Okay, and that says it all by itself.
And police say Wallace once pastored a church in Clinton. Now, investigators do believe that there could be more victims, and police also say there are charges in this case because the girl was 17 and too young to legally receive messages like this on her phone.
At 5:30, a local minister accused of sex crimes.
We first told you about Travis McQuilla last night at 11. Today, we confirmed that he worked as a minister in Smithfield. Now, he's in the Western Tidewater Regional Jail, charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and indecent liberties with a child.
At 10 on your side, Ava Hurdle spent the day digging for new information on this story, and she joins us now from the newsroom with more. Ava?
Stephanie and Anita, we talked with the pastor of his church who said he is completely shocked by these charges, but pledged his continued support.
33-year-old Travis McQuilla is an associate minister at Pentecostal Holiness Church in Smithfield. This according to his pastor, Kurt Townsend. He says McQuilla serves as an aide, leads worship on occasion, and Bible study. McQuilla was arrested last Friday and charged with sex crimes involving a young girl he apparently knows.
It's a tragedy to everybody, but we at the church, we still a loving church. We're a supporter of the family.
Elder Townsend said he's known McQuilla for 6 years and considers him a faithful servant, but police say he sexually abused a teenager at homes in Suffolk.
And essentially these incidents actually occurred between the time frame of 2009 and 2012 when a female family member who was the victim had experienced those situations. When these incidents actually occurred, she was between the ages of 13 and 17.
The charges, while disturbing, won't keep the pastor from rallying behind McQuilla.
You're innocent till proven guilty. So we're not going to kick nobody to the curb. Continue to show love.
This, he says, as the matter winds its way through the court system.
Now, we wanted to ask Travis McQuilla about this, but he declined our request for an interview from the Western Tidewater Regional Jail where he's held tonight. A preliminary hearing on this matter is set for September. Ava Hurdle, 10 on your side.
He's used to standing in front of a congregation, but today a local rabbi accused of getting a 15-year-old girl pregnant stood before a judge. The rabbi will remain in jail tonight. This is News 6 at 4. I'm Ginger Gadsden.
And I'm Lisa Bell. Julie Broughton is off tonight. A judge took away 41-year-old Lloyd Houghton's bond today in court. He is now charged with sexual assault on a child older than 12 but younger than 18. News 6 reporter Nadine Yanis is live from outside the Seminole County Jail this afternoon. And Nadine, typically a charge like this does warrant a bond. So why did the judge still deny that?
Well, for two reasons, Lisa. First of all, the judge felt like as a Sanford rabbi that he would be just too great of a risk to the community. And secondly, she says that the evidence against him is too great. That evidence is DNA that links him to the teen's unborn child.
Court is going to issue a no bond.
Though he's used to speaking in front of people at a synagogue, Lloyd Houghton had no words in front of a judge at his first appearance today. The 41-year-old rabbi at the synagogue Beth Israel is accused of sexually assaulting and getting a 15-year-old girl pregnant. Today we learned that girl is a relative. He's an extended family member. According to his arrest report, the victim began living with Houghton when she was just 8 years old. Her mother from Jamaica, trusting he would take care of her. But in March, at 15 years old, the girl came forward, telling police that for years, Houghton snuck in her room at night to sexually assault her. He was questioned, but then denied it. Unfortunately, at that time, there wasn't enough physical evidence to make an arrest. However, 1 month later, in April, the girl said she was now pregnant. She ended up getting an abortion. Detectives took that DNA, and when the results came back, it showed this rabbi was 99.99% the father. And detectives had enough to make an arrest.
When a person that's, in a position of authority, such as a rabbi or any kind of church or clerical leader, they have a certain amount of trust that's bestowed upon them by their congregation and the public in general.
And so today I spoke to another rabbi at that synagogue, and he says that Houghton no longer works there with them, but police say that he has worked there for years. So my question to them was, could there be more victims out there? Hear their answer in my story tonight at 5 o'clock. Live in Seminole County, Nadine Yanis, News 6.
A safety alert. A religious community rocked after word their pastor was arrested for allegedly sexually assaulting 2 young girls. Local 10 News reporter Glenna Milberg is live with the disturbing details. Glenna.
Nicole, the church is locked at the moment. You can see it's closed, and its pastor, Junior Beltres, is in jail. No bond. All the result of the stories of 2 little girls and a few months of police investigation collecting the evidence to back them.
The pastor posts his preaching at his church called Columnas de Fuego, Columns of Fire.
I called Mr. Junior Beltres on page 7.
Not one word, though, today in the courtroom where the judge denied him bond as Junior Beltres faced charges he raped 2 little girls.
One child was 10 years old and one child was 9 years old.
The police report recounts what the girls told them happened last July in specific detail: sex acts, rape, and several times. They both say on at least one occasion they were in the same room as each was assaulted. The girls say it happened in the pastor's bedroom at his Northeast Dade home where he lives with his wife, a house lined with kids' bicycles and toys. The air was on and so was a prayer program inside, but no answer. One sees the face, but you don't see what they do outside. From this owner of the restaurant downstairs.
He prayed for me for a few times.
People at the businesses neighboring the storefront church are just learning of the pastor's arrest.
Wow, I saw kids also there, but it's coming with the parents.
Whether it is in this church, whether it was in the neighborhood, maybe someplace else right now, it is unclear how Beltres knew these little girls whose trust he is now accused of betraying. I'm Glenna Milberg, live in Miami tonight, Local 10 News.
This now from Crime Team 12, North Augusta pastor Lawrence Smith is arrested and charged with 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct with a minor and some other charges. Deputies say Smith assaulted a teenage girl many times between 1990 and 1995. They say the assaults took place at Smith's home and another home on Bradleyville Road. The sheriff says there are more victims, but many don't want to cooperate. Smith is being held in the Aiken County Jail.
When parents of Lenana Primary School pupils were called for an urgent meeting to the school, nothing could have prepared them for the news the head teacher had for them. A 45-year-old man believed to be a pastor of a local church has allegedly been showing pornographic movies to 18 pupils of the school.
Nilipomuuliza akaniambia amekuwa akienda huko kwa Tomu. Tomu alipelekwa na mtoto mwenzake.
The suspect, Tom Msabili Elias Juma, was arrested in his house where he has allegedly been luring the young children with food and money. It is believed that he has been preying on the children for years.
Tulikuwa tunaochi mpaka usiku, narudi huko na kuja tena hapa kuochi kwa Tomu. Hao wanaume wanakujanga kuochi hapa, TV zingine wananifanyia hizo mambo zote.
It is alleged that he would order the children to perform acts shown on the pornographic videos.
Tunahangaika ili mtoto asome, na mwingine amekaa tu pale anafanya kazi zake, anachukua vitu vingine vidogo vidogo, tulua watoto wetu waingize kwa tabia mbaya. Tunasikia mpaka kuna watoto wa form 1 huwa wanaenda huko, si shule anaenda peke yake, watoto ni wengi sana.
The man has since been arrested and is being held at Nakuru Central Police Station.
Ikiwa wewe ni mtu ambaye unaishi mahali na unaona mtu ana vitendo ambavyo havistahili, mbona wewe usichukue hatua? Ama unasema kwamba kwa sababu wewe hauhusiki, haujali. Usijali, lakini kwamba akiwa anahusika na wewe uko hapo, mtoto wako ama jamaa yako atahusika.
New tonight at 6. The New Haven rabbi accused of raping and molesting a teenage boy is pleading not guilty to the charges. A judge entered the plea on behalf of Rabbi Daniel Greer. Greer's accuser claims the rabbi assaulted him while he attended the yeshiva of New Haven School in the early 2000s. Rabbi Greer is the founder of that school.
Breaking news involving a Boynton Beach pastor arrested for sexual battery on a teenage girl. News Channel 5's Eric Glasser is live in the Breaking News Center with what we've learned so far. Eric?
Well, Chandra, this case dates back to May of 2007, when the alleged victim would have been just 15 years old. But she didn't tell police about it until more than a year later, August of 2008. The case was filed about a year ago, and a warrant was issued about a month ago. Why it took so long to process, we don't yet know, but the suspect was arrested last night. Here he is, 39-year-old Dugrand Jacques, a pastor at the New Alliance Haitian Church in Boynton Beach. His young accuser says Jacques used his position of authority to win her trust and brought her to his home in May 2007. During what was supposed to be a counseling session, she says the pastor asked her about sexual relations with her boyfriend, kissed her, and then fondled her vagina. The alleged victim says Pastor Jacques told her, quote, "Don't worry, I do this to all my girls." That, of course, alarmed investigators who questioned other women in the church. One, according to the police report, said there was no way the pastor would do such a thing, but another said something similar had happened to her. The state attorney's office declined to issue a warrant in that case, saying too much time had gone by to corroborate the story. For his part, Pastor Jacques denies any appropriate contact has ever taken place and claims his young accuser fabricated the whole story to get her boyfriend away from the church. In the Breaking News Center, Eric Glasser, WPTV News Channel 5.
But first, what a Valley pastor is accused of doing might make your skin crawl. CBS 5's Peter Bush is live in Buckeye with that story. Peter?
Well, Charles Carfrey preached to his loyal followers right here at this church, but these so-called counseling sessions, they took place right next door at Carfrey's house. That's where police say he took teenage girls and sexually abused them. Buckeye detectives had a close eye on Choice's church back in 2005, but they say they had to back off because victims wouldn't talk. Now the walls of silence are caving in on Charles Carfrey.
He would end up counseling them and get their trust and get their information, and then he would start manipulating them into doing the more sexual things, like taking off their clothes during counseling sessions.
Carfrey is 59 years old. The alleged victims are teenage girls. According to insiders, the church was actually more like a cult. One told police, quote, the purpose of the church was for Carfrey to have a harem of women to take care of him. Another said the church was solely for the material and carnal needs of Charles Carfrey.
You'd have to live here and watch us for 6 years. We always thought it was kind of odd, just like a commune kind of thing. A lot of people live there.
Carfrey moved from Oregon to Arizona 6 years ago. So far, police say they found a handful of victims in the two states.
We fully expect more victims to be found, and we also, there's a possibility there's going to be further arrests as well.
And late tonight, we found some video of this peculiar pastor. This is video of Carfrey doing a sermon with holding a parrot. This was taken from the website of Carfrey's church. Tonight, Carfrey is at the 4th Avenue jail without bond. Live in Buckeye tonight, Peter Bush, CBS 5 News.
All right, thanks, Peter.
Members of the River Church say they're saddened by the news. Fox 16's Brent Solomon joins us live with more on the investigation. Brent?
Well, you know, Kevin, right now, Little Rock police are investigating 42-year-old Shane Montgomery. The Little Rock pastor made headlines earlier this year for holding church services inside of this bar. Well, tonight he faces charges that are more controversial than that whole concept. And we want to warn you, some of the accusations are graphic.
We choose to listen to the people that Jesus called us to reach.
That's 42-year-old Shane Montgomery talking to Fox 16 on a pre-Easter interview this year. Tonight, the former pastor of the River Church is facing felony assault charges. A 16-year-old boy told investigators the former pastor of the River Church sexually assaulted him when he was 15 years old. Some of the details are too graphic for us to repeat.
According to police, Montgomery actually admitted
admitted having oral sex and fondling the teenager, but denies any other allegations.
The touching and oral, that's as bad as doing the whole way, in my opinion.
Many of the people we share the news with were at a loss for words.
Not only that it happened, but that he admitted that it happened.
A 15-year-old is still a child.
Today, the River Church issued a statement saying its members are remorseful for the situation and want to help the victim's family in the, quote, healing process.
That's where you're supposed to be safe, is with a pastor.
We visited Montgomery's home today for comment. No one answered the door.
But in his position, think of all the people that he let down.
Now, staff at the River Church say they are prepared to offer professional counseling to the victim and his family as they get through this situation. By the way, Montgomery resigned today. We're live in Little Rock. Brent Solomon, Fox 16 News.
Brent, do we know how the pastor and this young boy allegedly met, or when police say the allegations occurred?
Kevin, I do know. According to police, they met online before meeting face-to-face earlier this summer.
Very interesting.
New at 11, a New Haven pastor facing charges after police say he had sex with a child inside his church. Court documents say that pastor thought the relationship was consensual. We're glad you're here, everybody. I'm Darren Kramer.
And I'm Ann Craig. The pastor is now being charged with sexual assault. Church members and neighbors are shocked and outraged. News 8's Jackie Slater joins us live in studio with that tonight. Jackie?
Yeah, and court documents describe in graphic detail alleged sexual assaults ranging from touching to sexual intercourse. Pastor Walter Williams has admitted to police he had a relationship with the victim. Investigators say it appears the relationship was consensual, but the victim is under the age of 18, and Williams was in a supervisory position as the pastor of her church, and that makes the relationship illegal here in Connecticut.
A trusted pastor, husband, father, and community fixture. As word of Walter Williams' arrest and allegations of sexual assault on a minor spread, those who live near the Walk of Faith Church of Christ in New Haven are in disbelief.
It's always crowded. Always crowded. There's about 30, 40 cars be up in here, and people, they got a van. The van across the street, they pick people up. I mean, they did a lot of good things. My man just made a hell of a mistake.
Williams is now facing 6 counts of sexual assault and 2 for risk of injury to a minor. Investigators say Williams began a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl back in July of 2015. The alleged victim, a member of his church and active in the choir. The girl told police Williams first approached her at a picnic a few years ago. Court documents say that's when Williams began texting and calling her, complimenting her on her body shape and physical appearance. The girl's mother found out about the relationship after finding graphic messages on her daughter's phone and Facebook page. The girl admitted she had had a relationship with Williams. Investigators say she explained in detail 6 incidences of sexual relations, 2 happening at Williams' house in Northford, 2 occurring inside the church in New Haven, and another 2 at rental properties Williams owns. On the church website, pictures of Williams and his wife. In a biography saying Williams, quote, attributes his teaching in ethics, morality, hard work, character, and integrity to his parents. Tonight, no answer at Williams' home, and the church sits shut and quiet. One neighbor saying she hopes Williams goes to jail for taking advantage of one of his parishioners.
Hey, you've talked to other neighbors. How are people reacting?
Oh, they're a little shaken up, to be honest with you. Everybody's scared. It's a very emotional thing for them.
If it's true, I just hope he get the help that he needs, because he need help.
Williams was arrested yesterday and is free on a $50,000 bond. He's scheduled to appear in court again on July 20th. Live in News 8 Control, Jackie Slater, News 8.
A former pastor arrested.
That's right. Stephen Bratton led the Grace Family Baptist Church in North Houston for years. This morning, he appeared in court. Channel 2's Vincent Crivelli joining us now live from downtown Houston with what happened in court. Vince, good morning.
Andy, Sophia, good morning. For the first time, former pastor Stephen Bratton appeared in criminal court. His charge, continuous sexual abuse of a child. Former pastor Stephen Bratton of Grace Family Baptist Church made his first appearance in court today. Bratton approached the judge and his bond conditions were set. He is not allowed to go places where there will be children, like parks, schools, and daycares. His internet usage will also be restricted and monitored. He's only allowed to go online to look for work. Bratton was excommunicated from the church, and a police report was filed after a shocking confession to two pastors. The Harris County Sheriff's Office says on May 16th, Bratton confessed he sexually abused the same female victim for the last 5 years, beginning when she was just 13 years old. Here's what the prosecution had to say today.
So the minimum range of punishment if convicted at trial is 25 years in prison and up to life. This is still an ongoing investigation, and so it's going to take some time, but we will make sure that justice is sought in this case.
And Bratton was with the Grace Family Baptist Church for at least 1 decade, according to a church official. His next court date is currently being scheduled. Reporting live from the Harris County Courthouse, Vincent Crivelli, KPRC, Channel 2 News.
$1 million bail has been set for a North Carolina pastor, Reverend Melvin Wallace Ollison. He's 60 years old. He's been charged with raping several children. Now, Ollison, former vice president of the charitable group Giants for Jesus, allegedly had victims ranging in age from 10 to 40. That's how they are now. But the youngest victim, reportedly at the time of the rapes, the alleged incident, was just 5 years old. Jose, I hate reading stories like this and hearing about them. You know, a notable member in this community where he was arrested. You had neighbors coming out saying, but he cut our grass, you know, he was feeding the elderly. And this man has been charged with raping children in his home. It's just unbelievable. The dichotomy that exists in this person.
Not only that, I think it's this idea that a lot of people fell prey to the position. You know, you have a pastor and you immediately give them this sense of trust that they will take care of you. And we've seen repeatedly lately that that's not the case, that they abuse this power, that they actually engage in taking control of their victims throughout a long period of time because they are in that position where the whole community respects them. So all these victims feel like they don't have a chance to come out.
They can trust them with their children. You know, a 5-year-old baby, are you kidding me? What is wrong with this monster?
A former Southern Indiana pastor convicted of sexually abusing a teenage boy will spend the next 15 years behind bars. Isram Johnson was convicted of sodomy charges in October. WLKY's Tim Elliott was in court this morning and spoke with his mother and the prosecution.
Isram Johnson received the maximum penalty possible here at the Judicial Center on Wednesday morning. Each charge of sodomy carrying with it a possible 5-year prison sentence. It's what the jury recommended, it's what the prosecution wanted, and the judge agreed.
I'd like you to look at those with him beforehand since the court has looked at those.
Before Isram Johnson could learn his fate, the judge stopped his sentencing so attorneys could read the letters of support from Johnson's family and friends. Then Johnson's attorney made a last-ditch effort to keep him out of prison, but neither would sway the judge.
You victimized one of the most vulnerable people in our community, and I think probation would unduly depreciate the seriousness of that offense.
Johnson was convicted of 3 counts of sodomy for sexually assaulting a teenage boy on several occasions between March of 2008 and March of 2011. At the time, Johnson worked as a pastor at the Prince of Peace Missionary Baptist Church in New Albany. His teenage victim was a member of his church.
Anytime that somebody is a victim of abuse, it's very sad and unfortunate, but it's even worse when they've used that trust with the family to be able to perpetrate that abuse, and that's what happened in this case.
Prosecutors say the victim and his family are now ready to move on.
Absolutely satisfied. We spoke with the victim's family. They're very happy with the outcome, and I feel like justice was done.
But Johnson's mother maintains that her son is innocent.
I'm feeling really exhausted, and also I'm feeling like it was unfair because I have never seen a case go down where it's no physical evidence, only by hearsay.
The prosecutor confirmed that there was no physical evidence presented in this case, but she said she did not need that. She said the victim's testimony was enough to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Johnson was guilty. Johnson, meanwhile, plans to appeal his conviction. Reporting from downtown, Tim Elliott, WLKY News.
And Johnson will be eligible for parole after serving 3 years in prison.
Well, new tonight, a former bishop accused of sexually abusing children for over 40 years.
ABC Action News reporter Isabel Rosales is at the West Coast Center for Human Development in Sarasota. Isabel, what can you tell us about this suspect here?
His name is right here on the church, Henry Lee Porter Sr., founder and bishop. But tonight, the 72-year-old is behind bars accused of disturbing crimes against children dating back since the 1990s. Porter faces one charge of sexual battery of an 11-year-old child who is now an adult. And it all started with a Facebook video. Sarasota PD says a victim claimed he was sexually abused as a child at the hands of a bishop. When they brought the alleged victim in, he named his abuser as Porter. The investigation led police to 7 other potential victims. In the arrest records, they describe facing molestation and rape multiple times a week, during school hours, on church-sponsored trips, and before and after service. The victims say it happened at the church and at Porter's family home. Sarasota PD says Porter was also investigated in 1990 and in 2001 for abusing children, but all of the incidents of sexual abuse were outside of the statute of limitations. We reached out to the church and to Porter's family. At this time, we have not heard back. In Sarasota, I'm Isabel Rosales, ABC Action News.
So 3 now, another alleged victim has come forward with accusations of sexual abuse against a Baltimore church deacon. Curtis Allen was a deacon at the Bethel Temple Church of Christ. A teenage girl says he sexually abused her when she was just 14. Now last month, a teenage boy came forward saying Allen molested him on 3 different occasions. The boy says the abuse happened at the deacon's home. Allen is being held at Central Booking this morning.
Welcome back. First up at 6:30, a former pastor at a camp in Huerfano County arrested last week on felony charges of sex assault on a child, and the victims, teenagers who attended that camp.
News 5's Andy Cohen joins us live in our Pueblo studios with more on what we've learned about this case, Andy.
Yeah, Robin Elizabeth, the warrant for 52-year-old Mike Encina was actually issued back in July when one of those victims came forward to authorities, but he wasn't taken into custody until November 10th. Investigators suspect that there may be additional victims in Huerfano County or perhaps in neighboring Otero County, where he had ties to another camp. The assaults happened 5 years ago at Camp Elam, which was located in the Navajo Ranch subdivision, about a 10-minute drive outside of Walsenburg. According to court documents, Encina was an employee at that camp between the years of 2013 and 2016. The 2 victims are male. They told deputies the assaults happened inside of an RV where they were staying with Encina. They described events where Encina touched them inappropriately and forced them to undress and have oral sex with him. Now, Encina was charged with 4 counts of felony sex assault on a child. He was released from jail on $50,000 bond last Wednesday and is scheduled to be in court again December 13th for the formal filing of charges. Now, we searched Encina's criminal history and found no other previous criminal convictions in the state of Colorado besides some traffic offenses. However, he did get a divorce in 2014. That's a year after these alleged assaults took place. Watching out for you, Huerfano County, Andy Cohen, News 5.
An assistant minister with some shocking charges against the head of the First AME Church talked to the media today. As John Schwada tells us, she got more specific, offering proof that she had been intimate with the Reverend John Hunter.
For 4 years, he used his position and his spiritual authority to intimidate, bully, and coerce me into a sexual relationship. He said it was God's will.
First time on camera, Pastor Brenda Lamoth, talking about her alleged relationship with her former boss, John Hunter, senior minister of the First AME Church. And Lamoth tells reporters she's got proof of her intimacy with the head of a church that's a political and spiritual powerhouse.
Among other things, I know that John Hunter has a 4 to 5 inch vertical scar on the right side of his buttocks and hip area.
Lamoth and her attorney also show the media 2 love notes, one with some explicit sexual language that Lamoth says she got from Hunter. Lamoth, now suing her former employer, says Hunter exploited her vulnerability to have his way with her sexually.
Reverend Hunter knew that I was abused as a child. He knew that I was deathly afraid of losing my job. He knew that I loved First AME Church.
Lamoth, who's now an aide to Mayor Villaraigosa, says suing is important to stopping Hunter. Meanwhile, at First AME, known for its lavish services, church leaders rallied around their minister.
And we do not for one moment believe the outrageous allegations in the lawsuit filed by Brenda Lamoth.
This church leader also claims those love cards were actually given to Hunter's wife, Denise, not to Lamoth. And she read a statement by Hunter's wife who says the cards were stolen from the couple's home. Reverend Hunter still hasn't agreed to meet with the media to talk about this situation, but he did tell his congregation on 3 separate occasions and 3 different services last Sunday that he did not have sexual relations with his associate minister.
And even right now, there are allegations against me which are completely false and without any foundation, and God's will and truth will always prevail.
In Los Angeles, John Schwada, Fox 11 News.
A Shelbyville pastor is behind bars, charged with the sodomy and sex abuse of a child less than 16 years old. James Howard Bell was arrested earlier this week. Stephanie Segretto's live in the newsroom with more on the case, including how police found out about the alleged crimes. Stephanie?
Well, John, Kentucky State Police say they were notified about the case after Bell went to the authorities himself. An investigation immediately got underway, and later that day, Bell was taken into custody. Printed on the sign of this Shelbyville church, the name of their pastor, James Howard Bell. Bell's congregation will likely be without him this Sunday.
Mr. Bell turned himself in to the Shelby County Detention Center. That's when we were notified of the complaint.
Kentucky State Police say after they were contacted, they sat down with Bell, and that's when he admitted to several crimes.
Once we interviewed Mr. Bell, he advised that he had some sexual encounters with a juvenile.
Trooper Ronald Turley says detectives then went to find the victim. After conducting more interviews, they executed a search warrant at Bell's house and arrested him later that day. Bell was charged with sodomy, sexual abuse, and wanton endangerment. Police say they will not discuss the specifics of the case. Bell is now being held here at the Shelby County Detention Center, and police say there is a reason he decided to come here and confess.
He apparently probably had thought at some point in time someone was going to come to us before he did.
According to the website for Bell's church, the Refuge Temple Church of God in Christ, Bell is married and has 3 children. Those at the church say they have no comment on the case. Police say despite the comments Bell made himself, their job is far from over.
We still have to put the case together, we still have to do the interviews, and we still have to do all the things we do to get the case ready for court.
Bell is being held on a $50,000 full cash bond. He denied our request for an interview. Live in the newsroom, Stephanie Segretto, WLKY News.
Disturbing allegations, a rabbi who taught at a Jewish school in Pikesville has now been fired after accusations resurfaced that he sexually abused a group of boys. This in an investigation by the New York Jewish Week. WJZ is live in Pikesville. Rick Ritter breaks it all down. Rick?
Well, Vic, the rabbi was accused of sexually abusing a group of boys at a summer camp, but was never charged. Then the allegations resurfaced, forcing his school to step in after many were wondering why the rabbi was still employed.
Hi, today we're going to learn the 10 tests of Avram Avinu.
A leader in Baltimore's Jewish community for years, Rabbi Shmuel Krowatsky can no longer step on the campus of Beth Tefillah in Pikesville after disturbing allegations of sexual abuse resurfaced.
Are you ready to begin? Let's go.
The allegations date back to 2015, accusing the rabbi of abusing 3 boys from Baltimore who attended Camp Shorish in Frederick County, where he once worked. The Frederick County Sheriff's Office said the agency opened 3 separate investigations, but all were closed without bringing criminal charges. The accusations resurfaced just days ago in the New York Jewish Week after parents of the alleged victims, young boys, came forward.
The moniker is Baffle, Wax, Hold, Fib.
Krowatsky taught at Beth Tefillah Dahan Community School, which put out a statement saying it was shocked by the specifics alleged in a recent article that's caused them much pain and anguish. They say they're aware of no safety concerns and complaints about the rabbi's conduct, but announced his immediate termination and say he's prohibited from returning to the campus. Krowatsky's attorney tells WJZ his client is a great man and that the rabbi took a lie detector test and passed with no hesitation, adding that Krowatsky would never hurt a child, period, and the public will soon see he's an innocent man. And the school says their actions should not be viewed as truth to these allegations. The rabbi's attorney says they will file a federal lawsuit against those who continue to pursue these false allegations. Vic?
Thank you. Rabbi Krowatsky was also employed by Suburban Orthodox Congregation in Pikesville, where he led a teen prayer service, but has now resigned from that position.
New at noon, a youth preacher is facing human trafficking charges. He just appeared in court today. Let's go to Local 10 News reporter Leanne Morejon, who is in Miami. She was in the courtroom for that hearing. Leanne.
And Janice, this is one of the more disturbing cases we've seen in quite some time. Let's show you the guy we're talking about. His name is 52-year-old Ron Maurice Cooper. He is facing several serious charges, including human trafficking and sexual activity with a minor. Now, in court, it was revealed that Cooper not only works in the stockroom at a local Walmart, but also as a youth preacher. He's being held without bond. Cooper appeared for his bond hearing this morning, where we heard from a Sunny Isles police detective who works on the human trafficking task force. Now, according to sworn statements given to police by 4 victims, they said they were lured by Cooper when he offered them some sort of modeling gig. They were told to meet at a motel, and the detective explains how they initially became ensnared in this sex trafficking scheme.
When they arrived at the location, it was a motel, and the supposed photographer was actually a client that wanted to have sex with the boys.
And police say these 4 alleged victims felt scared for their lives. They say Cooper threatened them multiple times, even beat someone up in front of them to intimidate them. Police arrested Cooper yesterday. They confiscated his computers, electronics. They say they also confiscated drugs from his home. These victims do allege that Cooper gave them drugs to be able to perform some of these sex acts that they were forced into, allegedly. And to make matters worse, police believe that there may be at least 10 other victims out there. And so if you perhaps are one of those victims, if you know of something going on with Mr. Cooper, you should definitely give them a call right away. We are live in Miami this afternoon. Leanne Morejon, Local 10 News.
The Catholic Church's pedophile priest scandal is hitting home in Southwest Florida again. The Diocese of Venice is investigating an allegation made against Reverend Gene Joseph. It accuses him of sexual misconduct with a minor back in 1993 in Fort Myers. Joseph denies the allegations, but a statement released by the diocese says Joseph has agreed to remove himself from active ministry during this investigation. To read the entire statement, you can just log on to our website, fox4now.com, and click on the big red 4.
Pastor is out on bond after police arrested him for sexual crimes involving a minor. They charged 39-year-old Jonathan Tucker with touching a child for lustful purposes, enticement of a child, and sexual battery. New Albany Police Chief Chris Robertson says a Union County grand jury indicted Tucker this week. Chief Robertson says his office began investigating the case more than a month ago. Tucker is pastor of New Birth Community Church. He's out on a $75,000 bond.
Youth Minister Raymond Brow is behind bars tonight. He turned himself in yesterday after San Joaquin Sheriff's deputies identified him at an undercover sex sting last Friday.
We all got out, we're all marked as sheriff's deputies. And he saw the gig was up at that point.
Lathrop's police chief says Brow almost ran him over as he tried to get away.
It happened like so fast, and I hear my radio was in my hand. It hit the car.
Chief Ryan Biederman says Brow thought he was meeting a 13-year-old girl to have sex.
The conversation he was having with our undercover detective was bad.
Turns out this most recent arrest is just the latest in a long rap sheet. The Megan's Law database shows Brow is a high-risk sex offender convicted on charges of sexual battery, annoying or molesting a child under 18, and indecent exposure. He's also been arrested several times in Sacramento County on charges including sexual battery. In 2011, Sacramento police say he exposed himself and inappropriately touched 16 and 17-year-old girls. Brow now lives in Modesto, and police say he did not register as a sex offender this past year.
He was essentially wanted already for not complying.
According to the San Joaquin Sheriff's Department, Brow is a youth minister at a local church. A spokeswoman for the department says they are refusing to name the church because they do not want to get the employer involved. We talked to a senior associate pastor at the House of Modesto, a megachurch in the city. He told us the church never employed Brow. Pastor Mike Trenton says Brow attended church and may have volunteered in the parking lot or with the men's ministry, but he says Brow never worked with children. Police say he was working under a fake name, Raymond Thiago, and says a church ran his fingerprints.
Anytime you run fingerprints, it shows up in your criminal history where you apply, who you apply for, and what the position is.
The church denies running Brow's fingerprints, saying they only do that for volunteers who work with children. Brow is behind bars here at the San Joaquin jail. He faces several charges, including lewd acts with a child under 14, assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, and failing to register as a sex offender. In San Joaquin County, Marley Martinez, KCRA 3 News.
In news around Georgia now, a Glenn County pastor who also worked as a school bus driver is facing several charges tonight. He is accused of sexually abusing a child under the age of 16. Robert Bradfield has the story.
According to his social media pages, he preaches and teaches the Word of God and considers himself a chief apostle. But the pastor of the City of Refuge Church in Brunswick, Georgia, is facing charges of sex crimes against a child. Daniel Hines turned himself in this week after Brunswick police received a complaint of sexual misconduct against the 38-year-old in late June. We spoke with former Brunswick Mayor Brad Brown about the allegations.
We feel safe down here, don't have any issues.
Brown takes pride in his hometown and the city he used to run, but says he never interacted with anyone from the church.
Maybe fortunate they didn't have any outreach in the neighborhood.
Hines is charged with aggravated child molestation and sodomy against a child under 16. Police have not released any details about what may have taken place or where it allegedly occurred. Hines was hired as a bus driver for Glenn County schools less than 2 years ago, according to a district spokeswoman. He passed a background check. Brown says parents should be alert about who's taking their children to school.
Especially if your child was riding on that bus and you had met or seen the driver, would be very concerning.
As we wait to find out if more arrests are made in the child sex trafficking case involving 3 local pastors, we're taking a closer look tonight at the allegations against the most recent pastor arrested and charged. Our Michelle Zepeda has the latest details.
This is video of Pastor Kenneth Butler being booked into the Lucas County Jail after being arrested. The pastor is seen being frisked and then removes his shoes and jewelry. This video captured after the FBI investigation gathered enough evidence to charge Butler with sex trafficking of a minor. Just one victim listed in the case, though court documents show there were several sexual encounters.
The victim told the FBI that she would have sex with Butler inside his car and that once it even happened in an alley just off the Anthony Wayne Trail.
Butler paid the teen for sex on most occasions, according to court documents. Money the teen told the FBI she used to buy food for her siblings. A classic sex trafficking victim, according to Celia Williamson, director of the Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute.
It breaks my heart because we see that all too often. Very vulnerable kids who just need to meet their basic needs. And so when we see somebody trying to survive and having to be vulnerable to this type of exploitation, it's sad.
Tonight, Michelle Zepeda, WTOL 11.
Developing tonight, the pastor and popular radio host accused of abusing a girl for years went before a judge for a bond hearing.
59-year-old Brian Fullwider was arrested last week. Police say he met the victim at the First Congregational Church of Winter Park when she was only 14. News 6's Amanda Castro joins us live from the Orange County Courthouse tonight. So Amanda, we still don't know if Fullwider will be released on bond.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. We don't know. And all that's standing between Fullwider and freedom is a 53-minute phone call. The judge says she wants to listen to that controlled conversation between the suspect and the victim before she makes a ruling on his bond. Reverend Brian Fullwider fighting for his freedom. The 59-year-old back in court this afternoon for a bond hearing, 1 week after he was arrested on charges of sexually abusing a teenage girl. Investigators say it happened when he was the senior pastor at the First Congregational Church of Winter Park. His defense team arguing he deserves bond, saying he has deep ties to the community and isn't a flight risk.
And we're looking forward to getting him released and obviously reviewing the evidence and doing what we need to do.
Fullwider speaking out for the first time since his arrest, giving us some insight on what he would do if he's released.
What is your plan when you get out?
Well, I plan to work to restore my name and work to take care of the things I need to take care of and do what work I can.
But the state argues there's strong evidence for the judge to issue a high bond, citing a 53-minute controlled phone call between the victim and Fullwider. In that call, investigators say Fullwider described himself as a predator and knew they were talking about an inappropriate sexual relationship.
Given the fact that he's admitted to a sexual relationship with the victim, he's admitted that he was a predator during this time, his ties to other communities, we would ask that this court set an appropriately high bond to ensure his appearance here at future court dates.
But Fullwider's defense team says they haven't heard that entire phone conversation, only just snippets that were included in his arrest affidavit. So they want to hear that. And so does the judge. She wants to listen to that entire 53-minute phone call before she makes a ruling on his bond. The defense is hoping that they'll get her answer, get her decision by tomorrow. We, of course, will keep you updated. Reporting live at the Orange County Courthouse, Amanda Castro, Getting Results, News 6.
Amanda, thank you.
A pastor on the run busted in Allegheny County. Matthew Patterson was arrested at his job for the Postal Service. He was wanted in Nashville, Tennessee, accused of sexually molesting several children there. Police have been looking for him since he disappeared last fall.
45-year-old Matthew Dennis Patterson resigned from the church in September. He moved to Pennsylvania shortly after.
An evangelical pastor from London has been sentenced to 8 months in prison after admitting charges of indecently assaulting a boy and sexually assaulting a man. Dr. Albert Ojulele, who had a lucrative career of public speaking and TV appearances, ran the Glory House International Pentecostal Church in London. He admitted fondling one of his teenage parishioners, aged 14 or 15 at the time, and groping another pastor while they shared a hotel room. Channel 4 News understands that 8 alleged victims of Dr. Ojulele were originally identified, but they did not want to give statements to police.
New at noon today, a local pastor arrested on charges of child molestation and sexual assault. Roy Bolden, tall man dressed in the black shirt here, was arrested last night. A judge ordered him held without bail this morning. Providence police tell us the allegations came from a young man who said he's been preyed upon for a long time. Police say Bolden is listed as a leader at the Legion of Christ Ministries Church on Broad Street in Providence. He's due back in court later this month.
Now to a safety alert. Police say a teenager was sexually assaulted by her own stepfather and that the man who's accused didn't do it alone. Local 10's reporter Terrell Fournay is live in Fort Lauderdale with the story. Terrell.
Well, the person in jail tonight was arrested by airport district officials, though the circumstances are still unclear. But that suspect is someone that victim knew well. In fact, her own stepfather. 2 people are now in jail here at the Broward County Jail in Fort Lauderdale. That other person is a church pastor.
All right, sir, you are charged with 3 counts of sexual assault with a victim over 12.
The alarming allegations against Avo Roker involves the man's own stepdaughter.
Your Honor, this is a punishable by life felony.
The 32-year-old was arrested Saturday after initially being considered a fugitive. Cops say the crimes date back 2 years and also implicates a Lauderhill pastor who was arrested a few days ago on similar charges against the very same girl. 40-year-old Ricardo Strawn is accused of having sex with the then 13-year-old dozens of times in 2016. Strawn is listed as president of the Prophetic Worshipers International Church located off Northwest 38th Avenue in Lauderhill. Strawn and Roker were apparently friends.
A Catholic priest in North Carolina has been charged with molesting a member of his youth group. The Reverend Edgar Sepulveda turned himself over this weekend. Local media reports that he had lawyers by his side to face second-degree sexual offense and sexual battery charges. Deputies say Sepulveda molested a boy after the boy's parents permitted him to stay in their home while he ministered to a youth group.
New at 6, a youth leader from a local church under arrest. He's accused of sexually abusing a young girl, and police are concerned that there could be more victims.
Pembroke Pines police say Dimitri Daniels confessed to committing a sickening crime, sexually battering a young child, and police say he admitted doing it on multiple occasions. At a news conference Tuesday, Police Captain Al Zekas said Daniels arrived at the police department with his family on Monday and turned himself in.
He had shown the victim in this case pornographic materials and in essence demonstrated or showed her what he expected or wanted her to do.
Police initially called Daniels a volunteer youth pastor at Mount Pisgah Seventh-day Adventist Church in Miami Gardens. But an associate pastor at the church said Daniels never served as a volunteer youth pastor and was simply a member of the church. Later Tuesday, the police department said in a tweet that Daniels told investigators he volunteered with the church's youth group and that the church verified he's a parishioner. The tweet added that Daniels was not a volunteer youth pastor, instead a youth leader. Still, police say they believe Daniels' role at the church put him in a position of trust, and they want to know if there are any other concerns about his behavior.
A Sacramento area priest is under arrest, charged with lewd and lascivious acts with a minor. 32-year-old Father Uriel Ojeda turned himself in to Sacramento police last night. This after the Roman Catholic Diocese filed a complaint.
A pastor arrested. He's accused of molesting a child in Escondido. Escondido police arrested John McFarland, a resident of Fullerton. Police say that McFarland molested the victim when he was visiting relatives in Escondido several years ago. McFarland is the current pastor at Orange Thorpe United Methodist Church that's in Fullerton. Police believe there may be other victims, and they're asking them to come forward.
Gerald Campbell traveled to Malawi, Africa rather often and would help run a children's home there. But rather than teaching and preaching to the kids, these court documents accuse this man of sexually abusing multiple orphans.
According to an affidavit, Campbell inappropriately touched at least 11 orphans and forced them to touch him. Each of the accusations took place between 2001 and 2003, and with at least one of the victims, the documents state that the abuse happened nightly over the course of 8 months. In the affidavit, Campbell admitted he, quote, took advantage of the boys and stated that he did it because he knew he could. He also told police he knew he was in charge and explained that he could buy his way out of it, which he did on at least 2 separate occasions, where he would give the victims money or other things of value to keep them from disclosing the abuse.
Pastor in Medford, New Jersey is under arrest tonight, charged with sexually assaulting at least 4 children for more than a decade.
The Burlington County Prosecutor's Office announced 74-year-old Harry Thomas was arrested Wednesday for a series of sexual assaults against 4 minors that spanned 16 years. Authorities won't give details about the children or tell us if they attended Thomas's congregation, the Come Alive Church in Medford. They say Thomas sexually assaulted the 4 youths while in Medford Township between 1999 and 2015. One count is aggravated sexual assault. Police say he's at an undisclosed medical facility because he's too ill to go to jail.
A Fort Wayne pastor was arrested yesterday on charges of repeatedly molesting a foster child in his care. The Journal-Gazette reports 50-year-old James Burton was booked into the Allen County Jail on 4 counts of felony child molesting. Burton had been serving as pastor of Greater Faith Baptist Church, according to the church's Facebook page. He's accused of inappropriately touching a girl under the age of 14. The alleged crime was reported by the child at her school. The girl tells investigators the molestations began when she was 6 or 7 years old. She and her sister had reportedly been living at Burton's home for 2 years before they were recently removed.
A Hales Corners pastor is on leave from his church after he was arrested in another state for the alleged molestation of children. Corrine Zell spoke to abuse survivors tonight, and they say the church needs to encourage victims to come forward. Huh, Corrine?
George, the church hasn't said whether or not the pastor is getting paid, and we don't know how long church leaders knew about the charges before asking him to step aside.
A picture from social media shows Tom Chantry, who's been pastoring Christ Reformed Baptist Church of Hales Corners for the past 10 years. He's charged with multiple counts of child molestation and aggravated assault. Chantry, seen here on the Christ Reformed Baptist Church website, is accused of molesting or assaulting 5 children between 1995 and 2000 when he was a pastor at a church in Prescott, Arizona.
This paperwork released today by the U.S. Attorney makes 19-year-old Matthew Lane Durham out to be a monster. Investigators say Durham has confessed on tape to what he allegedly did. Matthew Durham's Twitter account shows him with Kenyan children he's worked with as a volunteer with something called the Upendo Children's Home in Nairobi, Kenya. This past June was the 4th time Matt Durham traveled to Nairobi to volunteer. Documents allege in early June a staff member noticed oddities in how Durham interacted with some of the kids. Durham initially denied the allegations but admitted to be struggling with homosexuality and child pornography. Then Durham admitted to performing sexual acts on several of the children, to include having sexual intercourse with them. Investigators allege there were between 4 and 10 victims, boys and girls, between the ages of 4 and 9, and some of the allegations are just too graphic to mention here.
A West Palm Beach pastor and his wife are behind bars accused of molesting children, and we've learned the couple runs a nonprofit aimed at helping teenagers.
This is Senior Pastor James S. Jackson. His bio online says he's devoted most of his time and energy to being an ear for youth. The bio also says he and his wife, First Lady Valerie Jackson, do couples therapy and help marriages reach their potential. Now they're behind bars at the Palm Beach County Jail. James Jackson charged with sexual battery on children, and his wife Valerie is charged with lewd and lascivious behavior involving children.